John was spinning the steering wheel while looking at his cell phone screen. He knew it wasn't safe to drive and watch funny videos on social media, but still, his stupid habits got the better of him. He laughed all over the gap as he watched another video of idiotic jokes. His shift was over. He dropped off his partner, Slavik, and was on his way to the garage when he saw a beautiful woman's silhouette. Mother of God, John muttered, putting the phone aside and shining the garbage truck headlights on the woman. The woman, walking doubtfully down the track, was completely naked. John had seen a lot in his 10 years on the garbage truck, but this was the first time he would ever seen anything like this. He slowed down, jumped out of the car, took off his blue and orange jacket, and called out to the woman. She turned around and looked at the man with an indifferent look. "Here, put it on yourself," he said as delicately as possible, so as not to frighten his casual acquaintance. The woman looked at the man for a minute, not understanding what he wanted from her. Then she threw her jacket over her shoulders and covered her private parts with her hands. It finally dawned on her that she was naked, and a stranger was standing next to her. John tried not to look at her, but simple curiosity caused the man to cast oblique glances at the stranger. In this short time, he appreciated the woman's beautiful figure, her well-groomed snow-white skin, her beautiful long hair, her pleasing facial features. The woman's head was cracked, looking like she had been hit on the head with something heavy. She staggered slightly and mumbled something inaudibly. There was terror in her eyes. "What happened to you?" John asked, and when he noticed she had beautiful earrings in her ears, one with a pink and one with a blue stone, he was still thinking about the peculiarities of woman's fashion. He understood nothing of such style, but what he saw made him smile. The woman smiled back modestly and fixed her disheveled hair. At that moment, the man noticed the small tattoo of the letter A on her left wrist. "Can you talk?" "My name is John, and yours?" The woman shrugged her shoulders in embarrassment. "I don't remember," she muttered, and this inference horrified her. "Then I will call you Anastasia if you don't mind. Judging by your tattoo, your name begins with A." John pointed to the tattoo on the woman's wrist. She nodded. John didn't know what to do next with a stranger who couldn't remember anything. "How about I take you to my acquaintance? He's a doctor. Let him examine you. At least that way, we can be sure you are all right," he said. "But first, we have to get you dressed. We are not going to the doctor dressed like this, are we?" The woman was ashamed. She pulled her short jacket down, helped her into the cab of the garbage truck, and they drove to the house of his ex-wife. "We are going to Lutka's. She may be an expletive, but she is kind to me. I do not have woman's things, and she has a lot of them. Maybe something will suit you." The woman nodded in reply and silently turned to the window. She frantically tried to remember who she was, where she came from, and what had happened to her, but she remembered nothing. When the car pulled up in front of an old 5-story building, the woman looked at John, who understood everything. She didn't want to get out of the car. The man nodded and headed towards one of the entryways. On the doorstep, there was a fat-looking older woman in an old bathrobe. "What do you want?" She had a cigarette butt in the corner of her mouth. Then John told her about his new acquaintance. He asked for clothes and shoes for her. "You are really something, Johnny. Can't you find a normal woman? You are picking up some bums without the tribe." "Right, I will look something up, but if it doesn't fit, don't bring it back. Keep it. Maybe you will find another hungry girl who will fit my clothes." With these words, the woman smirked and briefly disappeared behind the door. A few minutes later, she came out and handed John a large bag with a box. "Here, take it while I'm being nice, and get out of here before you change your minds." John thanked his ex-wife for the shoes and clothes, and then went downstairs to the car. He handed his new acquaintance the bag with the box and closed the door. He didn't want to embrace an already frightened woman. He waited outside while she dressed. After a few minutes, she knocked on his window, letting him know that she was already dressed. "What a case! It is a little big for you, but the shoes are just right, and it's better than it was," he said as he turned the key. The garbage truck blowed, and they started up. After a while, they drove up to a large private house. John asked Anastasia to sit in the car, and he went to the gate of the house. He rang the bell and held his breath in anticipation. The dog in the yard barked, and the light in the hallway came on. After a couple of minutes, a man's head appeared in the window. He pulled back the long curtain, looked outside, and began to open the door. "Hey, what's up?" he asked, scratching the slight unshavenness of his face. "Vega, help me out. Met a woman on the highway. She doesn't remember anything. Examine her, please." John spoke in a low voice. The man became indignant, saying that his working day was over. But John reminded him that he sometimes sees patients illegally at home, and he agreed. "All right, let her in the house." He waved and entered his dwelling. At that time, the lights went on all over the house. The stranger slowly crept downstairs and walked leisurely toward the house. John followed her. The man looked around, and now a man whistled admiringly. As it turned out, the doctor's house was divided into two halls, the living part and the part where he received patients. It had not only equipment, but even its own mini operative room. "So, you will express your admiration later. I need quiet. Come this way, my dear," the doctor said, putting on gloves and a white coat. The stranger walked behind the door, occasionally looking around and searching for John with her eyes. "It is all right. He can be trusted. I will wait for you here," John answered her, staying in the living area and sitting down in front of the TV. An hour later, the doctor came out, took off his gloves, and began to wash his hands. He informed John of his preliminary findings. "So, the lady is generally unharmed, meaning I do not see any direct signs of beatings or violence. The second thing is that the woman does not seem to have given birth. Whether she is married or not is not known to medicine," he smiled. "But about her head wounds, it's complicated. The injuries are serious. She had to have several stitches. Now, I'm not surprised that she doesn't remember anything. Her amnesia is the result of a severe blow to the head. I think the stress played a part in it, but don't worry, it is only temporary. In time, she will remember everything. Also, I found traces of strong psychotropic drugs in her blood. Her veins are fine. She's not an addict, that's for sure. It is possible she may have taken something intentionally or coerced. It is hard to tell. It wouldn't hurt to take her to the police." John shook his head in the negative. The last thing he wanted to do right now was get involved with law enforcement. "What? Did you like her or did you like her earrings?" "I'm no jeweler, but I can tell you they are expensive. My jeweler friend will tell you more accurately if you want to talk to him. Here's his card." With these words, the doctor handed the card to John, who hid it in his wallet. The doctor looked at the woman and coughed, glancing sideways at John. He realized that the doctor needed to be paid, so he reached into his wallet, pulled out some bills, and handed them to the doctor. "Don't be angry. That's all there is. I will bring you the rest when I get my paycheck." The doctor grinned and nodded his head in agreement. He also reminded him how to take care of the head wounds and asked him to come back in a little while to remove the stitches. John listened attentively and walked with the stranger to the exit. In the car, he calmed the woman down and told her everything was going to be okay. "We are going to my place now. Don't think anything bad. We just don't know yet who you are and where you are from. And when your memory starts to come back or we find out something about you, you will go right back to your place." The woman nodded and turned to the window again. On the road to John's house, they drove in silence. When they pulled up, The man helped her downstairs and pointed to an old, resting 5-story building. "This is where I live. It is in disrepair. They are preparing to demolish it, but we are not going to move yet. It is me and my adopted daughter, Olya. I found her in a trash can. Can you believe it? They throw babies away like garbage these days. She was so tiny and pretty that I decided to keep her. It took a lot of work with the paperwork though, greasing up, if you know what I mean." The stranger nodded. They entered the apartment, and a 5-year-old blondie girl with incredibly blue eyes immediately jumped out to meet them. "Daddy's here," she screamed and jumped into the man's arms, wrapping her arms around his neck. "Hush, baby, you are choking me. Meet Aunt Anastasia. She's going to be staying with us for a while," John said, pointing at his guest with his hands. "She is beautiful," said the girl, looking at her guest from all sides. "Can you cook?" "All my daddy cooks is fried potatoes, salads, and eggs." The guest smiled and shrugged her shoulders. John asked his daughter to go to the kitchen and set the table. In the meantime, he would boil the sausages and slide the breads. The girl galloped happily into the kitchen, humming a jolly song under her breath. "How funny she is," said the stranger, looking at the girl sideways. John smiled and fussed in the kitchen. His guest put on an old and yellowed apron and then helped the girl set the table. After a while, they all sat down at the table and ate dinner. "Papa, we are eating like a real family today," shouted the girl, waving her sausage fork in the air vigorously. John smiled embraceably, and the guest could not help smiling as well. After dinner, they all washed the dishes together and went to their beds. A few weeks passed, and it was time to remove the stitches. Back from work, John took Anastasia to the doctor's office. He was sitting in the company of his friends. "There you are, meet my friends, the jeweler," the doctor said as he put on his gloves. "You talk while we take care of the stitches." The doctor took his patient to another part of the house and closed the doors. John and the jeweler looked at each other. "My name is Alexander. I've heard about your feats. You are good. I also heard about your stranger's insanely expensive earrings," he said, and a spark of curiosity flashed in his eyes. John started to say that he wasn't interested and that they weren't going to sell the earrings, but the man came closer and put his hands on his shoulder. "That is not the point, friends. I want you to look at them. Every jeweler has his own handwriting. Perhaps we can identify them. We have no information about your madam. Do I understand?" Dawn nodded. At the same time, a doctor and a charming stranger came out to them. John approached her and told her the jeweler's theory. She immediately agreed, took off one earring and handed it to the man. He grabbed the piece and began to examine it under a special magnifying glass. Then he shook his head, smiled, and returned it to its owner. "This is the most unique thing I have ever seen. Not paired earrings are the tears of the gods. They are made of a blue and a pink diamonds. The pink earring is the tear of the Greek goddess Artemis, and the blue one is the god Apollo. They have a limited edition and are sold individually. Only very influential and wealthy people can buy them. The last auction at which they were sold was last year. One of the organizers of the auction was a good friend of mine. Usually, all such buyers are made anonymous, but for me, we will make an exception." The stranger, hearing the voice of the jeweler, even jumped on the spot and clapped her hands. "I will immediately call him and arrange a meeting. You have my number. Call me tomorrow, and we will discuss everything," said the jeweler, dialing the number of his acquaintance. John agreed. He approached the doctor, handed him the money, and thanked him. The woman named Anastasia smiled cheerfully and went outside with John. They talked for a long time as they got into the car. Then the woman saw a black car pull up in front of the doctor's house. A thin man with sly eyes and a high forehead got out of it. His eyes darted from side to side. "Let's get out of here very quickly," she said, literally clutching his hands. "I think I know this man." Anastasia could see it once. how scared she was. John immediately jumped out of his seat, and they drove home. It was only while there that the woman calmed down. A little after her encounter with the strange man, her memory slowly began to return. She remembered her name. Her name was Maria. She also remembered what the letter on her tattoo means. It is not the first letter of my first name, like you thought. It is the first letter of my last name and an element of our Anissimo family crest. My family is very rich, and now I understand everything. Recently, my father had all the papers rewritten in my name. According to them, I owned the major stakes in our holding company, Maria explains. Listening to the woman's story, John got a bottle of vodka from the kitchen cabinets and quickly thought of an appetizer. Wow, you can't tell without 100 grams, he said as he poured the vodka into glasses. I have never been married, but I had a friend not long ago. He told me that he loved me, and I believed him. We became close, even though my father didn't like him at all. I can see why now. Most likely he drugged me. Something quickly made up a fake marriage, forced me to sign all the documents and delegate authority to the new husband, and then his assistant drove me away, stripped me naked, took my phone and documents, and stunned me over the head. At these words, the woman's pupils dilated. John was dumbfounded by this flood of information. And if this man came to see your doctor's friends, that means the jeweler found out who I was and gave the information to my husband, and he sent this guy. I need to contact my father right away and tell him everything. If I stay with you, I will put you in danger, John said. Maria listened carefully to John and put her hands on top of his. Immediately, Olio ran to them, tears in her eyes. I heard everything. Will you leave us? Please don't go, she said, stammering, and threw herself on the woman's neck. The woman hugged the little girl back. In the short time that Maria had spent in their family, she had become very attached to them. Touched by this reaction, she almost cried herself. The three of them embraced and talked for a long time into the night. And then the woman took off her earrings and handed them to John. Take them and sell them. You will have enough to buy a new apartment and live comfortably. At least you won't have to worry about your finances for a long time. If you want, I will call a friend of mine and he will give you the best price for them. John looked at the woman he was madly in love with and couldn't take his eyes off her. I was helping with my heart. I don't need your money. It was from the heart, he said and pushed the earrings away from him. Maria wanted to object, but the man made it clear that he would not accept any excuses. She sat in silence for a long time, staring at the wall. When John and Olio went to bed that same evening, Maria contacted her father and told him everything. He was very happy that his daughter was alive. After all, her lying husband had said that she was dead. Maria's car was found completely burned. The woman's body was not found, but the bribed people told her father that the body was seriously damaged and could only be identified by its teeth. They wouldn't even let me look at you. They buried you in a closed coffin. I mourned for you. I was just crushed by the news of your death. But it all makes sense now. I'm going to make some calls and send a security car in the morning. Take care of yourself, baby. Her father muttered and hung up. Maria went into the kitchen, cleared the table, washed the dishes, and looked into the room where John and Olio were sleeping. She walked over to his couch and removed a glass of water from the nightstand. The sleeping man periodically rolled over and may well have hit the glass. Maria then walked over to the sleeping girl, kissed her on the top of her head, and covered her with a blanket. How cute they are when they sleep, thought the woman, laying down on the small cot beside her. In the morning, a car came to pick her up. Maria kissed the sleeping Olia and was already saying goodbye to John when the same black car came around the corner. There was a burst of gunfire. John managed to react and cover Maria's body. The guards in the car started to respond, and a firefight ensued. Maria screamed as John, smiling, fixed her hair and tumbled down. Someone call an ambulance, Maria screamed. His security pulled her away from John, who had fallen to the ground. The woman resisted. She didn't want to leave the man who had been treating her beautifully all along. Besides, his adopted daughter was at home, sleeping peacefully and unaware of anything. Maria was taken to the airport from where she left on a private plane. The guards did not let her to go anywhere and escorted her the entire way. They only got away from her when she was brought home. Her father came out to meet them. Maria and he hugged each other. Please, Dad, I have to go back. There are people dear to me left there. I still don't know what happened to John. Was he hurt or is he dead? And all because of me? The woman was crying. If Gena Genovich listened to his daughter's story and called her into the study, her husband was sitting there with his hands tied in the family notary. When he saw the woman, he turned as pale as a wall and screamed that he would sign everything and return it to her. Justice was restored. Having solved one problem, Maria couldn't find her place. She walked around her huge room and could not believe she had so unkindly escaped from her savior. If it hadn't been for him, the bullet probably would have hit her. The woman sat down on the couch and covered her head with her hands. Are you going to sit there, or are we going to cuddle at least? A familiar voice came from the other side of the room. Maria looked up and saw John. His shoulder was bandaged, and his arm was buried in a special bandage. He was smiling. Give me a hug too, I want one, shouted Olia, who had been hiding behind John's legs the whole time. My loved ones, the dearest people on the planet, Maria answered, ran over to them, and all three embraced. At that time, Gena Genovich looked into the room. After making sure that all was well, he smiled and closed the door. Now peace and order would finally reign in his house. Thank you for joining us today on Deep Stories. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video.